Well, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, as the case may be. Welcome to Fridays with Phillip. My name is Phillip Cantrell. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Benchmark Realty here in Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and now also Alabama. This is a monthly recording that I do, primarily for the Benchmark affiliates to let them know what's going on in the real estate world and what's going on within our company. So we're going to kick it off here today by a reminder to be sure and hit the like and subscribe button that you see below. You want to make sure that you get subscribe to it so that you get an alert when we're going to do something new, because we're always putting content out here. And as you can see, since you're watching this on the YouTube channel, you can see that we have a lot of content there. And a lot of the content that we've been doing lately has had a lot of views from other, from outside the industry, from in the industry, from other brokerages, and we're always welcome that. And if you have any questions, I'll give you my contact info at the end. But in each video, you see there at the bottom, the title of the video is circled. So you can actually see everything that we're doing. You can categorize it there. And then if you click on those, you will see this. You will see a breakout. You click on the description of the video, you'll see a breakout by time on what goes on in that video, whether it's just the basic numbers or whether it is some pertinent information about the industry. We try to cover a lot of good information there. So click on those, explore them, and particularly if you're a benchmarkian, you want to look back at some of the ones we've had in the past, because we cover a lot of important policy statements that we've been putting out here over the last several months to help you in your business and help your clients understand what's going on in the real estate world. Start off with a plug for our sister company, Momentum Title. They are attorney owned, no closing fee on your first closing, active military, or your personal residence. That is for the closing fee, not for the title insurance, okay? And then also 50% off for veterans and first responders, and then 50% off on your personal investment real estate property. If you get them both sides, they will only charge one fee, and you can share that between the two sides. A quick reminder here that this revenue from Momentum Title provides the free tools that you enjoy here at Benchmark. So we solicit your business there to be sure and use them, so we can keep providing new tools, or at least tools at a significant discount that we can't do if we don't have the revenue from Momentum Title. So we want to put a plug in for them. And one of the tools that we've been talking about a lot lately that we have actually deployed about 5 or 6 years ago. I really have forgotten how long ago it's been, but it's Real Scout. We were one of the first ones in the Southeast to deploy what they call the buyer graph. And you can think of Real Scout as Zillow with AI. In other words, it listens or watches what your client is doing on the system once you set them up on there, the search, and it will begin to modify the search according to how they click. And it will also notify you when they modify their search interests. And you want to look at the little loop there you see on the screen. It talks about nurturing and staying in touch. And there was a report released a few years ago that said that immediately following a real estate transaction, 98% of clients would say they would use the same agent again. However, 2 years later, that percentage drops to 9%, from 98 all the way down to 9. And why? Because you aren't staying in touch with your clients. So this is an easy way to do that, to keep them in the loop, to let them know what's going on, to gradually drip on them so that they're aware of what's happening in the marketplace. There's also been a lot of noise lately about exclusive listings, or private listings, as they call them. And we've had that feature for 2 years via Real Scout. Now, we have to follow the MLS participant rules, of course, but we have had the exclusive listing feature. And if you have a client signed up on that, they will receive an email that matches their criteria regularly for all of the exclusive listings that Benchmark has in place. So you want to get them signed up on that. There's lots of noise on that, and we have always had that option. Not always, but for the last 2 years anyway. Another feature that we've been able to bring to you is Client Bay. This is part of Back At You. That's what the BAY stands for, Back At You, the social media posting platform that we've had for quite some time. And now we have the CRM integrated with it. And by the way, this CRM is fully integrated with Real Scout. It's fully integrated with Social Bay, which is Back At You. So you want to make sure that you try to take advantage of this. And we have some training coming up on that in case you just want to be interested to see what it looks like on the CRM, the Social Bay Client CRM. on the dates that you see there on the screen. And by the way, everything we do at Benchmark is on the training and events calendar on Benchmark Dash. So be sure and keep up with what's going on Benchmark Dash on the training and events calendar regularly. This product does cost you a little money, but it's not nearly what it would be if you went out and got it on your own. If you were to buy this on your own, it would be $115 a month. We offer it to you for just $35 a month with zero setup costs. That's a pretty big deal. So you want to take advantage of it. You can hit that QR code that you see on the screen there, or you can click the tile on Benchmark Dash. Shifting over to our expansion now, we are continuing to grow. And we just a reminder that we are now open in Alabama, and Bo Zebak is our principal broker in Alabama. We have several agents doing business down there already. So you want to take advantage of that if you are an Alabama agent. And here's just some key locations you see on the screen. You can see the Bowling Green location. You can see the Murray, Kentucky location, which is new. I'll put my laser pointer out here. The Murray, Kentucky location just out from Clarksville, so it's kind of ideally in between there. We're getting some interest in the Paducah market. We recently joined the Paducah MLS, so we are getting some agent interest there. Of course, we have the Hendersonville, Mount Juliet, Murfreesboro, the two in Franklin, the Dixon County location, which is a satellite workspace. It's basically a key card entry system where you can punch the door to get in system. And you can get in there and use that if you're a Benchmark agent and happen to be working in the Dixon area. You can utilize that facility just as well. So we're growing. Alabama, we've indicated there, we just told you, we've got a license there. And then we don't have an office in Chattanooga, but we do have several agents that live there and are members of the Chattanooga MLS. So if you have interest in selling in that area, let us know, because we should be able to accommodate you there, and who knows what the future holds for Chattanooga. We'll just see how that goes. But we are continuing to grow. We are on that bend right now. As we talked about earlier this year, we upgraded our website, and we want to make sure that you understand that we did a lot of cool things. I'm sorry, my shirt collar is driving me nuts here, but don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to what I'm showing you on the screen. We have invested a lot of money in this website. We've invested a lot of money in generating leads for your listings. And that's our rule here. Your listing, your lead. We do not catch leads off of your listing and harvest them internally. They go directly to you. We've already processed over 850 leads year to date, and we're just in May. So you want to pay attention. If you get an email from no-reply at unionstmedia.com. You see it there on your screen. If you get an email from them, that is a lead on your listing, and it is legit. It costs you nothing, and you need to respond to it instantly. We are seeing statistically that 60% of these leads are being unresponded to. So you want to pay attention, y'all. If you have a listing, it's going to automatically go on our website, unless you tell us not to. It's going to go on our website. And anybody who hits that listing and inquires, that is going to come directly to you. But we can see when you're not responding. So we have spent a lot of money on this, and we appreciate you being diligent in responding to that. Also, a reminder about discoverbenchmark.com. If you are working with an agent on the other side of a transaction who is not with Benchmark already, you can earn $300 if you'll recruit them or help recruit them into the Benchmark fold. All you have to do is reach out to Bo Zebak there, Bo at benchmarkrealtytn.com, make the introductions, make the connections, talk nice about us. And then once that new affiliate has been here for 60 days, you'll get a check for $300, and you can do that an unlimited amount. So you want to pay attention to that. It's free money. As you know, we're part of United Real Estate, which is now the one of the largest, fastest growing real estate brokerages in North America. We're pretty proud of that. We continue the trend in growing that company. We just had more firms join United last month. In fact, you may not know this, but I serve an additional role as EVP of strategy for the greater organization for United Real Estate. And it's been really interesting to play that role. I don't really spend a lot of time on it other than counseling and mentoring and idea and think tank type stuff. But one of the things that we came up with was the 4-stage commitment to your financial well-being. This kind of is in comparison or rebuttal for the stock swap schemes that you see out there in the industry and that you probably hear about in the industry. This goes back to the holistic approach for you, the agent affiliate. So first of all, we're going to start with 100% commission, right? You get all your money here. You pay a fee, you pay a fee per transaction, you get all the rest of the money. Then we're talking about healthcare insurance, and then we're talking about financial literacy, which is key to understanding how to handle money. A lot of folks say they understand it, but I'll show you some stats here in just a second that clearly disprove that most people understand money. They clearly don't. And then once you have a little bit accumulated, we've made a deal with Creative Planning to connect you with a wealth manager that's local and can help you out. And so that's our 4-stage commitment. Let's walk through each of those real quick here. Step one is your money. Mike Delprete, who is a university professor at University of Colorado Boulder, did a study on real estate companies. A lot of these are public companies that you see listed there on the chart. We're obviously a privately held company, so we released our numbers to him and went on a ranking of how much returns or is kept in the agent's pocket of each commission check. We ranked the highest. 96% of the commission dollars remain in your pocket, and that is really, really strong. In fact, it's the best in the country of the data that he collect. That's commitment number one. Commitment number two is healthcare insurance, which is comprised of Clearwater Benefits. I had a blank there for a second on the company's name, Clearwater Benefits, that we made this arrangement with to allow 1099 independent contractor healthcare insurance access, health share policies, HSA policies, PPO networks, dental, vision, accidental, critical illness, all of the above, including Teladoc, is available to you through Clearwater Benefits. And why is this so important? It's simple, because 65% of all bankruptcies list medical debt as the number one cause. And it's really sad to see that. 33% of you that are listening to this video do not have healthcare insurance. So you are one catastrophe away from total bankruptcy. That's a problem. We're trying to fix that. We're trying to help you. Just keep it in mind that healthcare insurance is a safety net underneath everything. And if you don't have healthcare insurance, it's like being a trapeze artist in the circus and swinging from the trapeze with no net underneath you. One fall and you're done. And if you don't have insurance, that's how it's going to work. Beware, though, there's an imitator out there. United Healthcare is not us. United Real Estate Group Healthcare is us. So United Healthcare, that's a big red circle. Don't pay attention to them. United Real Estate Healthcare Group is ours. So give them a call. Spend 15 minutes on the phone with them. They will not put you on a marketing scheme. They will not wear you out. If you are already on a better plan, they will tell you you are already on a better plan. We can't do anything for you. And they'll have an honest conversation. So I encourage you to do that today. Financial literacy is commitment number three. That's Smart Dollar. The Smart Dollar program is a Ramsey Solutions product. We've talked about this for over a year now, so hopefully you've begun to clue in how important this is. And it really is important to learn how to handle money, how to set a budget, how to get out of debt, how to make a decision with your family or a significant other to progress instead of regressing and spending money whenever you want to instead of when you need to, and then not having it when you need to. Financial literacy is key to that. Smart Dollar is free to you. This costs a lot of money. In fact, we are spending $500,000 to bring this to you, but that's how strongly we feel about it. And this is why we feel so strongly about it, because financial debt, consumer debt, continues to climb at a ridiculous pace, nearly $1 billion a year. We are literally, as a society, drowning in debt. And total debt in the last quarter just ended was up $167 billion. That's a lot in one quarter, y'all. But of those who have participated in this program, they are winning. We have 1,694 participants, and they are winning. The total financial turnaround for just those participants is $4.4 million. That's like found money, right? 1.8 million paid off in debt, and 2.6 million that is savings accumulated. I got a little ahead of myself there on the slide. but that's okay. It's important to understand that this is a good program. It's free to you, and all of your personal information is 100% confidential. So when you put it in the system, we can't see your bank account. We can't see your social security number. We can't see any of that stuff. We can only see what you tell us, and of course, your ID, your who you are and where you come from. You can go there, you can get on there by going on the dash, clicking the little tile that looks like a blue light bulb, and you want to use the email address that we have on our files for you, not some fictitious email address, but the email address that we have for you. And they will ask you for a company keyword, and the keyword you see on the screen there is UREG. Okay. So get signed up on that today. And then commitment number 4, once you have some money accumulated, we can connect you with Brendan Severino at Clear Creative Planning. He's the neck of the funnel. He will then place you with a local wealth advisor that can help you manage the money that you have and grow it into a significant amount so that you can retire. We are hearing great results from this. We're getting a lot of people saying, I didn't think I could retire, and now I can retire, and it's because of creative planning. So give Brandon a call and connect with him. That QR code will actually put his information in your phone number, email address, and that sort of thing. So that's our 4-stage commitment: 100% commission, financial literacy, insurance benefits availability, and then wealth management availability. By the way, on creative planning, you will pay them. They are a for-pay situation, but it is well worth the money. It's an investment. It's not a bill, as you will. Okay? So enough for the housekeeping. Let's get on to the company numbers for for April. We are in May as I'm recording this. So company numbers, and if you've not been through this before or not seen any of the others, you must have been living under a rock, but that's okay. We talk about as a comparison of how we did one month this year versus the same month last year. And so that's what we're going to show you here. April 2025, in 24, you closed $405 million worth of real estate. We paid $10 million worth of commissions on 821 transactions. At the same time, the market did 2,974 transactions, and that is a benchmark average sales price of $493,974, and that is April 24. April 25, you see there on your screen, we were down on gross sales just a little bit, and on gross commissions. That makes sense. They go together. But we were up on transaction count, which is pretty amazing considering the market was down 8.1%. So if you look at that, that's an 11% difference, and that's the part that we clue in on. That was an 11% difference ahead of the market. That is strong for any month. So kudos to you. You did a great job. Inventory continued to rise. Year over year, it was up 31.2%. Even month over month, it was up 1%. So it's still continuing to rise as homes come on the market. Of course, part of that seasonality, part of that is pricing. And then our affiliate count, the number of people that have joined us, continues to remain in that roughly 10% year-over-year gain bucket. And we are at 1773 at the end of April 25. By the way, as I'm recording this, it is the 27th of May, and we are up right at 1,800 affiliates now. So I'm proud to say that. That'll be a big social media announcement when we hit that number for sure. But anyway, that's the snapshot of April 25 compared to April 24. That's a lot of numbers on the screen. It's a busy slide. I get it. Let's look at a few pictures here. Gross sales. You can see how we're tracking according to 2024, 2023, and 2022. Big red arrow pointing to that gray line there. You can see that we're tucked in just under 2024 now. Same thing on commissions. We're tucked in that gray line with the big red arrow pointing toward it. We're tucked in there. And then we usually have a drop off in April, and we didn't have a drop off in April this year. And in 24 we didn't, but other years we typically have a little bit of a drop off, and then before it zooms for the summer. We didn't have that, so we're starting at a higher level for May, so that's a good thing, right? Transaction count is where we beat 2024. We're still below 2022, which was one of the outlier years. The first half of 22 was still an outlier year, and you can see there that we were still rising and continuing to go forward. So that's good. Year to date, how are we doing? Well, 24 year to date, you guys had closed. I keep saying we when I'm talking about you. It closed $1.2 billion of the real estate. we had paid you $29 million in commissions, almost $30 million in commissions on 2,524 transactions with an average sales price for Benchmark of 483. Good year. It was a good year, but we're doing even better this year. And again, that's the part we focus in on is how are we doing compared to last year's? We are right now 8.98% ahead of 2024. On sales, on commissions are up 4.2. Transactions, we are killing it at 12.7% above last year, while at the same time, the market overall year to date, as of the end of April, is down 2.7%. And then our average sales price continues to decline, which is what we want to see, some easing of pricing. But again, we focus on comparison to the market, and essentially, this is your bragging point. You guys beat the market 15.4%. So good for you. Good for you. Couldn't have said it better if I thought it up. Okay. So that's year to date. Outstanding. How's the national market? And this is kind of where we get into the stuff that your client probably needs to hear. So we're going to have all this posted on the dash, including the entire slide deck that we're giving you here that you're seeing on the screen now. That entire slide deck in a PDF format is posted on Benchmark Dash. Just scroll down to Agent Resources and then go to Fridays with Phillip, and you will see this recording and this slide deck. Now, we are also putting the recording out to the public on our YouTube page to try to help the general public, but I wanted you benchmarkians to know where you can actually go and get these slides if you want to use them in your presentations. So what are existing home sales doing in April? Well, as you can see on the screen, they kind of declined the last 2 months, and I struck a red line across there so you can see exactly where it is compared to the last 3 years. That's a 3-year view you're seeing on your screen. Annualized, we're running at the 4 million level, which is low. It's very low. That's down 0.5% month over month and down 2% year over year. So hopefully we can do something with the interest rates. Hopefully things will moderate. Hopefully more buyers will come off the bench and decide that the days of 3% interest rates are gone forever. Finally, they will realize that. I've been saying it for a year, that I will never see 3% interest rates in the rest of my career. And most of you probably won't either, just to be totally blunt with you. So buy the house, figure out what to do about the finances later. A house is two things. It's investment, yes, that's the one that most people focus in on, but it's also shelter for your family and a place to raise your family and raise your kids. And that's the real beauty of what we do. I could go to preaching on that topic, but let's move on. April national median home price is actually up 1.4%, but the important point to make here is that is the slowest pace of increase in 2 years. This is a good thing. We need home prices to come down so that we can broaden the market and people that are stuck in leases and stuck in apartments can actually get into homes. That's a very big deal that's going to hurt our economy over the long term if we don't dial that in. And it's not just about interest rates. It's heavily about home prices being too high. They ran up too fast, too high when the government was pumping free money into the economy. Now they've begun to pull that money out of the economy. Home prices are finally beginning to ease down. They're not coming down as fast as I would like to see them, but they are coming down. Everyone, don't worry. If you bought a house in the last 2 years, you're still going to have plenty of equity, but be aware that home prices do need to come down, and we're beginning to see that, which you can see over here at the chart there. So that's a national basis. What do they look like in Nashville? Well, you can see on the chart, the graph, you see this huge run up we had, and then it's kind of plateaued here. And you can see it's pretty choppy when you look at it on a month over month basis. But you can also tell that the median home price is now down 0.6% month over month. And again, that's a good thing. And again, this is just for Nashville, okay? Also, just for Nashville, the home price rate of increase is down 3%. So homes are still increasing somewhat, but they are not increasing as rapidly as they have been. And that is, again, a very positive thing. So you want to share that with your clients. The April national inventory is still rising. We like to see that, right? Total inventory now is 1.9 million homes on the market. That's an increase of 1.2% month over month and 16.7% year over year. So you have more options, more opportunity out there when you're buying a home. National single family inventory, you can see again how it looks. It is up 32.7%. And the important point I want to make here is that we are now at 2019 levels. That's how bad the inventory situation has been for 5 years. We've not had sufficient inventory, and we still don't. We need to be back up here. But it is rising and it is coming up, and we're thankful to see that. If you want to triangulate that, you can see this is 2019, the December of 2019 right here, and that was the last time we got up to this level. So thankful for that. Moving forward, April Nashville inventory is rising as well. You can see the big red arrow there. Total inventory in the Nashville, greater Nashville market is 9,039 units. You can see that's way ahead of 21, 22, 23. We're moving ahead. We're developing inventory, and we like to see that. Part of that is because homes are staying on the market a little bit longer. You can see the days to pending. This is not days to close. This is days to getting to the pending status. In April of 25 in Nashville was 20 days. So you can tell your clients that. That's about how many days it's going to take on average to get the home into a pending status. That's a fact. But thank goodness you live in the South, right? Because 45% of all transactions in the United States happen in the South, and that's where you live. So you should be grateful for that. Predictions for coming year, always a crapshoot, right? But it's looking good so far, right? That's what the economists are saying. You can see 2025 is up here. We have kind of taken a departure from the traditions of 24, and we didn't drop in April. And actually, this is dated. I'm trying to think when I did this chart. I believe I did this chart last week, so it would be mid-May is when this data is showing out here. You can actually draw a line here. You can see down here that's May. So that's mid-May that we didn't take the drop that we usually have in May. So that's a good thing. That bodes well for the futures. That's good, good predictions. Okay, enough with the stats and the data and the numbers. We're going to get into some other stuff now and talk about forms, which everybody's always so excited about talking about forms, right? All right. Last month, on Fridays with Phillip, we had a conversation with Stuart White, the director of the MLS, Realtrax, and we were talking about a lot of changes that are happening, and we'll talk about that here also some more. But go back and watch that video. It's on our YouTube page. It's on our dash. His slide deck is actually on our Benchmark dash. So you want to check those out. But one of the things that I mentioned in that was our new listing agreement and buyer representation agreement. We've rolled these out May the 2nd. You received an email with them. They're already in Dotloop. They're already in Transaction Desk. And I did a quickie little video at the time we introduced them, but I want to walk through each one of them now to hopefully answer questions, kind of explain why we did this. So let me start with saying that the Tennessee Realtors buyer representation form and the Tennessee Realtors listing agreement form left some huge areas of liability for us and for you as an agent. So I tried to negotiate with them to get them to modify that. They refused to. So, okay, fine. We're just going to do our own. And I'm doing this, presenting this to you today in the manner in which I'm presenting it, because I want you to understand that as of June the 1st, we will no longer accept the Tennessee Realtors buyer rep agreement or the Tennessee Realtors listing agreement. Now, if you already have one signed, don't worry about it. You don't have to go back and change it. But going forward, after June 1, we will send it back to you. If you do a listing on a TAR or TNAR form, buyer rep or listing agreement, our compliance department will send it back to you. So it's important you understand these and use them. And for the most part, that's a non-issue because most of you have already begun using them anyway. The exclusive right to sell agreement is 5 pages. The buyer rep agreement is 3 pages. So we have greatly simplified and left this to you and your client to make the decisions instead of us making the decisions, you making the decisions on what you want the relationship to look like. So let's start with the buyer rep agreement. That's the shorter one, okay? Little AI action there with the hand movement. I like that, right? Don't you like that? That's cool. So what is the buyer representation agreement? Well, it is a legal agreement between the buyer and the real estate broker. That's the client and Benchmark, okay? It outlines the broker's responsibilities, which you, the agent, will fulfill, and the buyer's obligations in this relationship. It's a clear establishment and establishes exclusivity and compensation terms. It's important to understand or keep in mind the concept that good fences make good neighbors. If everyone has a clear expectation and understands the relationship on the front end and has complete transparency, then the relationship will be fine. If you don't, then it won't be. It's going to be problematic. So there are key sections of the agreement that we're going to cover here, and we're going to go through this thing line by line on both these documents, but key sections are agent broker responsibilities, the buyer responsibilities, the broker fee and payment methods, the agency disclosure, and then the termination and carryover clause. So it looks like this, and we showed you a copy of it. You can go on Transaction Desk or you can go on Dotloop and look it up yourself and pull one down. Hopefully you already have one that you're using, but let's go through it each line. So the top section identifies us and identifies the parties, right? This agreement is between Benchmark and the parties. Who are the parties? That's the buyer, okay? Then we talk about next the properties. This is where you want to be as detailed as you possibly can. The undersigned buyer, hereinafter referred to as buyer, engages the undersigned brokerage firm, hereinafter referred to as broker, to represent buyer concerning buyer's purchase of the below selected real property types situated in the following areas. Many times I have seen agents skip over this part and not be very detailed, particularly in the other section. And guess what happens later when the buyer goes rogue on you and they start wanting to fuss and complain? There's no details, and they bought something that was completely outside of the discussion. You don't have a leg to stand on if you allow that to happen. So filling this out in detail is your best defense against that. Then the length of agreement. And it says subject to Section 15, which we'll talk about in a second. This agreement shall begin on the date executed by buyer and broker and automatically end on X date at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. That's known as the term. Okay, pretty straightforward stuff there. No surprises. The agency disclosure, as you know, here at Benchmark, we only practice designated agency. So that's essentially what this says, that the agency relationship between buyer and broker determines how broker will work on buyer's behalf as a designated agent for the buyer. The individual licensee that has been assigned by the managing broker, which is the definition of designated agency, is working as an agent for the buyer in this consumer's prospective transaction to the exclusion of all other licensees in the company. If someone else in the licensee's company represents a seller of a prospective property, the designated agent for the buyer shall continue to work as an advocate for the best interests of the buyer, meaning that just because you're showing a benchmark listing, that's telling your buyer that you're not going to switch sides in the middle of the transaction, so they can have confidence that you will maintain their information, their confidential information, as you go through the process. This next one talks about the broker exercising good faith efforts. And keep in mind, whenever you see, whenever you see broker in this document or the other document we're going to talk about, that's talking about you. You are the representative of Benchmark Realty, who is the broker. Okay, so that you're the designated agent, so that's you. You're going to locate and present suitable properties to the buyer. You're going to help them tour and prepare detailed analysis of specific properties per the buyer's request. You're going to help the buyer prepare, negotiate, secure a contract to purchase one or more properties. D, you're going to cooperate with any real estate licensee working with the seller to complete buyer's purchase of the property. And E, perform other services as needed and requested by buyer. And we'll talk about more of this in just a second. And this is the buyer's responsibility here. They need to fully understand what they're going to do. So let me read that. Buyer A should accompany broker on buyer's visits to the property. Shall conduct all inquiry, showings, and negotiations for the property in good faith and exclusively through the broker. Provide broker, upon request, relevant financial information to assure buyer ability to obtain the financing and notify broker promptly of any changes to such information. That means that buyers promising you here they're not going to go buy a new car on credit 4 days before they buy the house. D, agrees to work exclusively with buyer and not with other real estate professionals or owners with respect to viewing properties, and to refer to broker all inquiries from any other real estate professionals, owner, or any other source, and E represents buyer shall not enter into any other buyer representation agreement for the property during the term of this agreement. Pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. The broker fee. Notice we're not using the word commissions or concessions here. It's the broker fee. This is what you, Benchmark, we together are going to make. The buyer agrees to pay broker as provided below, hereinafter referred to as broker fee, for any properties involving broker's efforts. Sections 7B through 7E. This is part to pay attention to. No broker fee is due if broker's efforts involve only locating and representing or presenting suitable properties for consideration, defined in section 7A above. The broker fee is not set by law and is fully negotiable. The broker fee shall be due and payable upon successful closing, and then you have an option of being a percentage of the sales price or exactly dollar amount. Well, what does 7A above say? Let's go back to it. 7A says, broker shall exercise good faith efforts to A, locate and present suitable properties to buyer. So let's talk about this. This is one that keeps coming up. Well, I showed them the property, therefore I'm due to commission. No, honey, you're not. That is not procuring cause. Procuring cause is a chain of unbroken events that leads to an outcome. Okay? Just showing them a property, just sending them properties is not procuring cause. The law has proven that over and over and over again. So therefore, we as a brokerage cannot charge for something that is not procuring cause. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, then please feel free to have a discussion with your principal broker. I'm sure they'd be glad to explain it to you. This next section, gray shaded dotted lines around it, collecting broker fee from the seller. We offer A and B. There is a C, but it's up to them to do it. A is credit to buyer at closing. In other words, the buyer may choose to negotiate that the broker fee be paid in whole or in part by the seller through a seller credit to buyer at closing. At buyer's instruction, broker will write this request into the buyer's offer to purchase the property. That is in total alignment with our policy on shared compensation, which again is on Benchmark Dash. And again, we did a video on it explaining it, saying that we as a brokerage do not guarantee any shared compensation. If you want it, put it in the offer. Put it in the contract. Let the two parties work it out. It's completely transparent to both parties who gets paid, how they get paid, and when they get paid. And it's exactly what all those lawsuits were about. It's because as an industry, we tried to hide that. Not really tried to hide it, but it was not clear to the consumer. Option B is direct seller to broker compensation. The buyer agrees that the broker may ask the seller to cover part or all of the broker's fee at closing. If agreed upon, this arrangement will be included in the final purchase and sale agreement. Always, 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 always put all the commissions in the contract. Okay? The buyer also acknowledges the broker must get permission from the seller broker before directly communicating with the seller on this matter. There's a third option, a C option, and that's for the buyer to pay you directly. They can do that. Their buyer rep agreement says they owe you this money. How they do that is up to them. We're simply offering two options here. Any amounts paid by the seller toward the broker fee shall reduce the amount of the broker fee to be paid by the buyer. In no event will broker retain a broker fee that exceeds what is specified in Section 9. That it was specifically part of the settlement agreement. You cannot accept more than what is in one of the boxes above. Okay? Making that very clear as I can make it. There is a carryover clause that says if the buyer purchases a property in which the agent is procuring cause of the sale and or expenses related to procurement within X days of this agreement ends or is canceled, the buyer agrees to pay the broker's closing fee at closing. So pay attention to that. There's a carryover clause. This fee will be in U.S. currency, shall be part of the closing process. This agreement serves as instructions for the escrow to ensure the broker's fee is paid. Section 9 will remain in effect even after this agreement expires or is canceled. Okay, pretty straightforward. Fair housing, a warning on audio, video recording, and then my favorite part, which gives you the right ability to write in any additional terms you wish to write in. There's been a little pushback from some of our affiliates who like the TAR form. Awesome. Keep using it. We don't care. Come June 1, we will not accept it. You must write whatever bugs you about what we've got here. You need to write it in additional terms and clarify it and make sure that your client is signed off on it. That's how it works. Other buyers, buyer acknowledges that other licensees affiliated with broker may represent multiple buyers interested in purchasing the same property as the buyer. Okay, so they could be in a competitive situation there, and that's a fair warning for them to not cry foul on that if they see that. Cancellation, either party may cancel at any time. That's section 15. Just give us writing, cancel. If you don't like that, if you want to add something else, if you don't like that cancellation party, go back to here and write it in. That's up to you and your buyer to decide on what's fair and what they will accept and what they won't accept and what's acceptable to you and what's not acceptable. And then you have to make a decision based on what you want and what they want. Do they match? If they don't match, then do you want to do business with each other? That's a fundamental question. So we're essentially pushing those questions. Rather than us making the decision, we're pushing those decisions back to you and giving you the authority to make those decisions on cancellation. Governing law says the state of Tennessee and that this is the entire agreement. There's no side benefits. And then we move on down to the buyer sign. We have buyer 1 and then buyer 2. And then we have the broker information down here, which is exactly pretty much the same way it was before. So that is the buyer rep agreement, and some important best practices for you to adhere to. Number 1, you need to remember, you can't accept more than what's in this document. And number 2, this document must be executed before you execute a contract, before you write an offer. It's supposed to be executed before you actually show a property, but practical application, that may be challenging sometimes. You must do it. Full buyer presentation. They must sign this document, and it must predate the offer. Okay? Always, always, always explain the agreement in detail and make sure they understand it before you leave that buyer representation conference, before you get in the car. Do you have any questions? Yes, no. Let's go by each paragraph. Make sure you have questions. Yes, no. Let's answer those questions today. That's the conversation you have with your buyer. Okay? And ensure that buyer understands exclusivity and the terms, meaning that they can't go out and sign another buyer rep agreement with somebody else. Keep transparent communication about the broker fee. Make sure that they understand that all fees are negotiable and that they understand who's going to get paid, how they're going to get paid, and when they're going to get paid. Those are very big deals. Okay. And then you want to emphasize fair housing and compliance, and then to give them a warning about videotaping. That is almost in every house now that you go to. There's something in there recording the conversation, something in the front doorbell recording the conversation. So not only should you not do it in the house, you shouldn't do it on the front porch either. You need to do it out in the yard away from everything else if you're going to have a conversation about the property. But you all know that. I just wanted to cover the document itself. Okay, moving on. The listing agreement. Listing agreement, we tried really hard to compress it from the 10 pages plus that TAR uses in their listing agreement. And I think we did a pretty good job, but we still ended up at 5 pages. We'll go through it just like we did the buyer rep. Okay, the listing agreement here and after called the agreement. It talks about basically what we're doing here. What is our relationship here with this document? Moving on to the listing broker, we've already pre-printed it with Benchmark Realty, and then we have the designated agent that you have that you see there. Now, one thing to refer back to on the buyer rep agreement, we didn't have the designated agent close to the top of the form because you're going to sign it. You're going to put your information at the bottom. So really, we don't have to have that because that effectively establishes you as the designated agent just because you signed the form. In this case, we felt that we wanted to put it up front just so everybody knows what's what. And then, of course, the address of the company. The address of the company was left blank because we have 12 locations. So put the address of your location in there. Then we're going to talk about the owner, seller, client, who may not necessarily be the occupant. They may have a different address. So we have that space there for the address of the owner, and then we have the property address. And then be sure to put the tax ID number. If you don't do anything else down here, put the tax ID number on there. You have access to CRS tax information on the MLS, so just put it in there, right? Look them up, put it in there. Length of agreement. Notice that this one does not begin an execution. It gives you, the agent, the option to begin it whenever. So if you want to sign it and have it begin, later, you can do that. And that's why we left it that way, but it begins on this date and will automatically end on this date or upon closing of termination of any then pending transaction involving the property, whichever is later. And that's called the term. Agency disclosure, and here we're going to define designated agency even better, even more clearly than we did in the buyer rep agreement. But we're essentially saying it is designated agent for the seller. That is going to be your role. You're not agent for the seller. You're not facilitator. You are designated agent for the seller. That's how we do things on listings here. The individual licensee that has been assigned by the managing broker and is working as agent for the seller property is the consumer's prospective transactions to the exclusion of all other licensees in the company. So that's pretty straightforward. Listing price, you're going to put a listing price in there. Notice the amount or rate of real estate commissions is not fixed by law. They are set by individual broker, by each broker individually, and may be negotiated between seller and broker. That's you. You are the representative. We just talked about that in agency disclosure above. So if you want to negotiate something different, negotiate something different. But we talk about how that compensation get paid in section 10. Broker will earn compensation, hereafter known as listing broker compensation, when a sale of property has been completed, regardless of who has found the buyer. This is called an exclusive listing agreement. So we get paid no matter who finds the buyer, unless you change that in additional terms, which you certainly have the power to do. Listing broker compensation will be paid by seller in U.S. funds at the time of and as a condition of sale completion. This agreement will serve as escrow instructions. Listing broker compensation, check one only, and it gives you the option, exactly a dollar amount or a percentage amount, or there's an other line. You can write in there whatever you want to write in there. That's up to you. If you have something different, something odd, write it in there. Okay. Unrepresented buyer. This is new. This is something the TAR agreement does not have. So sometimes we see situations where a listing agreement will say, well, if an unrepresented buyer comes, then my commission is going to be X. May or may not be less, may be more, but it's going to be X. It gives you the ability to dictate that on the front end and have that conversation, which you should already have been doing, but having that conversation with your seller so they understand. And unrepresented buyer, if buyer is not represented by a broker, then listing broker assumes additional liability and paperwork responsibilities. In this scenario, listing broker will not represent buyer, but will facilitate the completion of necessary forms and ensure fair treatment of all parties. In this situation, listing broker compensation will be exactly X or a percentage of the gross purchase price as reflected on the financial settlement statement. Do not let that word facilitate confuse you. You are not changing. You're not changing agency status. You are still the listing agent, period. You don't ever need to change from listing agent to facilitator. Sorry, that is a myth, a misnomer, bad training, whatever. You never switch from listing agent to facilitator, okay? You have confidential information on the seller already. How can you then say, I'm erasing that part of my brain and I've forgotten all the information, so now I'm going to be a facilitator, a fair and unbiased third party just helping the paperwork transaction? You can't do it. Paint a target on you and sue me. That's what's going to happen. So don't let the word facilitate confuse you there. You are the listing agent and we are the listing broker. And then another warning. Notice listing broker does not share commissions with buyer's broker. There is no guaranteed shared compensation. This is completely in line with the settlement agreement spirit and letter. We don't share compensation. Buyer agent want compensation, put it in the offer. Let the two parties, the two principals to the agreement, work it out. I have several videos on this on the YouTube page. I highly encourage you to go watch those to see what we think about that and how we suggest you phrase that, including our shared our policy on shared compensation, which you can download from the dash and send it to any other agent that's kicking on you. Carryover clause, pretty much the same as the other one. It basically says, this is what we're going to do. You're going to pay me X number of days. You're still going to pay me the dollar amount above, unless you change it in additional term section later. You're going to pay me X amount of term. And then in the last sentence, it's pretty key to understand this will not apply if the property is exclusively relisted with another company. And that's in keeping with what we see traditionally happening in our industry. That once it gets listed with another firm, then you're done. It's over. Okay. Exclusive authorization. Seller understands that having multiple exclusive real estate listing agents at the same time may lead to seller having to pay additional fees. Okay, so think about that. An exclusive listing agreement says you get paid no matter what, no matter who sells the property. And that's a warning to the seller that if they do that, they may wind up paying two agents' fees. I've seen it happen. And then another notice that seller concessions are not required or fixed by law. The amount of any seller concession is fully negotiable. Seller concessions. This is one that's been of great confusion here lately. A buyer may request a concession from seller, hereinafter referred to as seller concession, in the form of a credit to be given to buyer at closing. This seller concession may be used to reduce buyer's loan costs, title and escrow fees, buyer's broker fees, property repair costs, any other allowable buyer costs and fees. The final amount of the seller concession must be determined in writing, whether in the purchase and sale agreement or in other applicable documentation. All seller concessions are fully negotiable. Again, if that deals with something relating to the property or your commission, our strongest recommendation is to put everything in the agreement itself. Authorization to promote. This basically is the seller saying, you may do these things to help sell my property. There may be some things they don't want done. That's why we use the checkbox, not an automatic blanket statement of fact. And then moving on down here is an interesting sentence that we added. Broker is or is not authorized to disclose the existence of offers, including sales price and or terms and conditions to third parties. Okay, that's buried in the TAR language, but it's not really prominent. We kind of made it prominent here to give the seller the option on how they want to manage this going forward. Property showings and access. Seller authorizes or doesn't authorize installation of a lockbox. Seller will safeguard valuables and prescription medications. Seller accepts responsibility for preparing the property to minimize the likelihood of injury, damage, or loss of personal property. Seller shall provide access to the property at reasonable times on reasonable notice to allow for showing the property to prospective buyers and their brokers. So essentially, that section, showing and access, is what the seller is going to do. And now here's what you are going to do. Exercise skill and care and due diligence, provide comparative market analysis, create and execute a marketing plan to promote and advertise, organize and conduct showings, represent seller negotiations with buyers, potential buyers, and handle all necessary paperwork, coordinate inspections, communications to ensure. So quite a bit you're obligating to here. Some of this is in the one you've been using, some of it is not. We have added some here, and you want to be aware of that. And then G is provide regular updates to seller regarding marketing efforts. More seller commitments. Love it. Seller possesses and shall continue to possess full legal authority to sell it. I mean, you don't want to go through all this work if the guy or gal is not legally able to sell the property, right? Provide documentation reasonably requested by broker. Provide timely and accurate disclosure of property conditions. By the way, that's state law, so they don't have a choice on that one. Or they have to do a disclaimer or an exemption. Cooperate with broker in the sales process and act in good faith to accomplish the sale of the property. Maintain the property's condition. Inform broker of any past due mortgage, loan payments, etc. Inform broker prior to leasing, mortgaging, and in a way that demonstrates that broker is not responsible for custody or condition of the property or for its management, and seller in seller's discretion shall consult with seller's advisors for specific legal, financial, tax, or other professional advice. We are not attorneys. If you have a question, Mr. Seller, consult an attorney. Don't be in a rush. Consult an attorney. It will save a lot of pain later. This next section is basically what we fondly call in training as the screwed and glued paragraph. It details everything that's going to stay with the property, and this verbiage is exactly like the TNR contract. Then other included items, you have the ability to write them in. Excluded items, you have the ability to write them in. If anything is rented or leased, including gas propane tanks and that sort of thing, needs to be itemized in that area below. And then another warning on recordings at the property. If seller has an AV recording system at the property, seller understands the recording and transmitting of audio or video may result in a violation of state or federal laws. Seller is advised to post a conspicuous notice on the property regarding the existence of such devices. The seller acknowledges that prospective buyers may photograph or video the interior of the home. Therefore, seller should remove any items of a personal nature that seller does not want photographed, recorded, or transmitted, such as family photos, paperwork, or other personally identifiable information. That's an important sentence to make sure they understand that. So anyway, you want to make sure they understand that fully. Cancellation, again, can be canceled prior to the end of the term upon mutually written agreement between seller and broker. And again, I will say, unless you change that in additional terms section below, you fully have the ability to do that. We do not infringe upon that in any way, form, or fashion. Fair housing and FERPTA disclosures, and then potentially competing sellers and buyers. And it just goes on to tell them clearly that we may represent competing buyers. We may represent other properties that buyers are interested in. And that's how they're going to make the client's going to make their decision, not us. Electronic signature, cyber protection. This is standard boilerplate legal conversation here. And then the favored additional terms and conditions reserved for additional terms as agreed upon. So anything that you're not comfortable with in this agreement, you may modify it here on section 25. As long as it's legal, ethical, meets our standards here at Benchmark, you have the ability to do that. And then this is the entire agreement. And then signatures. So we have seller 1, we have seller 2, seller 3, and seller 4 already on the form. So you don't have to use an additional signature or block form separately. And then down here at the bottom, it talks about who Benchmark Realty is. So you want to make sure that you fill that in. It's not a contract, so there's not a buyer representative information on there either. So some best practices. Always explain the agreement in detail. So you had a video on each one of these. It was kind of light and fluffy. And now you've had a complete description line by line on each of these documents. So you should be able to explain this in detail. And if not, then feel free to reach out to your principal broker. They have been trained. They understand the nuances. And we're happy to walk through anything that you're unclear on. Make sure that the client understands exclusivity and the terms of the agreement clearly. Keep transparent communication. Keep transparent communication about the broker fee. How you get paid, when you get paid, and who gets paid is paramount in all of these conversations. And then finally, emphasize the fair housing compliance and surveillance warnings. Most of those 4 apply in both of these forms. Okay. Now for the bombshell, as you know, and you got this email May the 2nd, which contained a link to the document as well as a link to the videos describing each document. But you may have missed this part down here, and I want to point it out to you that as of June 1, if you have an old listing agreement dated June 1 or later, we're going to kick it back to you. Sorry, we just have to draw a line in the sand. There's too much liability that still exists in the TAR form. We cannot allow its use within Benchmark Realty. One of the conversations we've had going on has been going on really since May of 24, when RealTrax came out and said, okay, as of April 1, 2025, you no longer have to be a member of NAR, TAR, and GNAR, or whatever, 3-way agreement, so it's all 3 or none. You no longer have to be a realtor to have access to RealTrax. So cool. But your realtor dues are paid January 1 to December 31. So unless you stupidly surrendered your membership, then it's a problem. So we've been talking about this for a while, and that email you see on the screen, you actually received that email last year. So if you didn't get it, go look. We've talked about it in multiple emails. We talked about it. The real question is to be or not to be. So what's coming in the rest of the year? So we're shifting from specific discussion of forms to what happens in the rest of the year, or what happens next year, okay? So we've already talked about the two forms that we are changing this year, and we're doing that because of the liability that we feel we're exposed to, and you're exposed to. And why are we doing that? Why are we concerned about the liability? Because the way the settlement agreement is written, if you violate the terms of the settlement agreement, then your coverage under the settlement is automatically revoked, as is the brokerage. Now, the brokerage, we had our own settlement because we were part of United Real Estate. We paid a settlement dollar amount because of the lawsuits, and we're okay. But if you don't adhere to the regulations and the rules, then you invalidate that for us too. And that is a really big problem. But anyway, taking all that aside, the issues at heart, if you break it down and simplify to be a realtor or not be a realtor in 2026, whether you renew your dues this year, boils down to four basic areas. Number one, you cannot use the term realtor in any form or fashion. I'm thinking about trademarking Realtor, putting an A between the L and the T and copywriting that, because that's what most of the public calls us anyway. But you can't use the word, you can't use the brand. You'll lose access to association benefits. Code of ethics, okay. The big one is loss of access to TNR forms, the association forms, okay. So walking through that, Realtor, the brand is commoditized already. There is no value to the brand name Realtor any more than there is to Kleenex or Xerox or Band-Aid. Make me a Xerox of this. Can you give me a Band-Aid? Do you have a Kleenex? You don't say facial tissue. You say, give me a Kleenex. Well, those are brands that have been commoditized, have been allowed to become commoditized by their owners. Realtor is another one. It's commoditized. Loss of access to association benefits. I mean, that is a personal choice. Education. Most associations will allow you to take education courses, and 90% of you do your education online now anyway, because it's easy, it's simple, it's convenient. You can do it at night in your jammies. Is that a value? That's a personal choice. Programs, social events, trophies. We give a lot of trophies at the United Conference, Elevate. You want a trophy? I got a whole closet full of them, and none of them have ever helped me put a dime in my bank account. Personal decision for you. Code of ethics. Code of ethics is not effective. Licensee is either ethical or they're not ethical, period, right? We see lots of realtors out here acting stupid every day. As brokers, we hear about every one of them. This goes on. It is what it is. We learn to accept it. But to hold the badge of code of ethics up and say that prevents bad behavior in industry, I'm sorry, it's just not true. The whole code of ethics itself is dysfunctional. I point out to Standard of Practice 10.5, the free speech code. There are now 3 people that have lost their license because they posted a Bible verse on their social media page. That's a problem, y'all. There was the Inman article this morning, as a matter of fact, that came out and said that NAR is considering revising the code of ethics, specifically talked about 10.5 and a couple of others. A couple of others are very problematic too. But it's this whole concept of politicizing our organization that has got our organization into trouble. So I'll just step away from that and leave that alone. The big one is the loss of TAR forms, TNR forms, right? Because TNR forms cannot be used by non-realtors. In full disclosure, I went to Angela Shields and I said, Angela, we're going to do the new listing agreement. We're going to do the buyer rep agreement because what you've got is garbage. I'm sorry, it just is. No insult to anybody, but you were poorly advised to approve those documents. But those are bad. We're not going to use those, but we would like to use the rest of the library. We think it's cumbersome, particularly the purchase and sale agreement is cumbersome, but we think we can use that. Would you please license that to us for a fee? Brokerage would pay the fee, not the agent. The brokerage would pay the fee. Not only did she say no, but she said, heck no. And don't even ask me again, essentially. So stonewalled. I have the emails if anybody wants to see them. If anybody questions what I'm talking about, the truth of what I'm saying is absolutely true, that I tried to work through this in a logical, cooperative manner, and it was denied at every stance. Okay? That's what we've got to work with, though. So what are we going to do? Benchmark is already working on a forms library. You see a screenshot of my coffee table here in my office of the forms that are laid out there. We're not complete yet, but we will have the complete forms library ready by December 1st. Probably sooner, but that's my guarantee, is it'll be by December 1st, 2025. We're working through each of these, and for example, the purchase and sale agreement, which you see up there in the top left corner, is complete. And by the way, everything we're doing is being reviewed and reviewed and reviewed by multiple attorneys. We're not just firing off half-cocked out here on our own. We are doing this with legal advice all the way through. So the purchase and sale agreement you see up there on the left-hand side is only 9 pages long, and it eliminates 3 other documents. Okay? Maybe 4, actually. So we're putting the confirmation of agency at the top of page 1. We're putting the personal interest, if there is any, at the top of page 1. We have a very strong disclaimer statement, which eliminates the requirement for an additional document on using the disclaimer. And then there's a very strong wire fraud warning in the document, which will eliminate the additional wire fraud document that we currently have to use. So we're trying to use logic and years of experience of deal making to help simplify your world. When we have these forms rolled out, they'll be rolled out in .loop. We don't have access to transaction desk, and they are very expensive to try to have a transaction desk account for every one of you. It would cost us tens of thousands of dollars every month. .loop is much less expensive. So if you want to use these documents, you can download them from the dash, or you can, if you're a non-realtor, you must use them, which means you either download them from the dash or you use .loop. That's your 2 options. If you have DocuSign on your own, you can download them from Dash, put them in your DocuSign, and map the forms if you want to, however it wants to work, but you won't have access to Transaction Desk. So that's a little bit of a negative, but looking at a survey that went across the closed group recently, everybody that responded loves .loop. So I don't understand if there's an issue there. Maybe us old people just need to learn some new habits. I don't know. And I'm looking at myself when I say that with all the gray hair. So we will have those. We will have the complete forms library. We will have it logical. It will be logical. It will be ready to go no later than December the 1st. By the way, the confirmation of agency that you see right there, see how this box is a whole lot smaller? Well, what have we eliminated? Agent for the seller, agent for the buyer, and dual agency, which we have never done and will never do practice here at Benchmark. So we took them off. They're not on there. We took off a bunch of other stuff down below and added a line here of warning too. So we're making sure that they're clear, they're easy to use, and that you as an affiliate have everything that you have now, and it'll be your choice. Again, it's your business, so it should be your choice, not a requirement from some nebulous third-party organization, wherever, that says you must do this or you must do that. You are the one that needs to decide what works for your business, and we're here to facilitate that and provide a platform that you can bolt your business onto and be successful without all the noise that we've had for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's our stance on that. I've been playing around with AI, and I put in Chat GPT a picture of me, and I said, show Phillip presenting a buyer representation agreement to a young couple. And this is what it came up with. I think it did okay. I I probably am more gritty than that, but I think it did okay with the hair in the suit. It missed my badge though, my DB. Anyway, that's just a little fun I was having, and I thought you guys would enjoy it too. We're here to help you. We are not here to stand in your way. We are not here to make you jump to a bunch of unnecessary activities, jump through a bunch of hoops. We believe that our mission is to facilitate your business, and however you want to do your business is what we're for. If I can help you in any way, form, or fashion, my contact info is there on that QR code. You can hit me up, and we'll go from there. We'll keep you informed. Thanks for listening today. Appreciate you being here. Let us know what we can do to help. Have a great day.